do.
Richard! Richard, help!
Shawn,
Yeah, it's me!
why are you in a sewer?
I was looking for the turtles.
You were as pathetic as you are sad. Now listen to this, because it's a Pod Bros exclusive. I'll go get a ladder. What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we're speaking the language of bromance. And today, I have things I need to share. I have to share my bromance. I have to share my bromance with a movie called Age of Ultron.
What would you think?
Okay, this is general synopsis. Now, this is about 24 hours since I watched the movie.
Yeah, and this is going to come out like 2 weeks after it's been out. So, I mean, this is going to be spoiler filled on that. So, go ahead and move forward to about the 30-minute mark to see if we're still talking about this.
Okay. I will say this. There was a lot to do in this movie. A lot. You had to, because you have all these characters, all these actors, and all of them, deserve their own kind of story. I mean, like, they have made movies about each one of these people individually. It's something that, that seemed to go really easily together in the first Avengers. You had, Iron Man and Cap and Hulk, and everybody had their own movie, so you didn't need to go into like a backstory about where Thor came from or where Iron Man came from. So you basically that story was about them coming together as a team. Which honestly I would say between these two movies, I would say that is probably the easier story to tell.
Yeah, definitely. It's a story that's been told many times. A group of characters don't get along, and now they figure out that working out as a team is the way to do it. That's the way to beat up the bad guys. We're not individuals; we're a team.
Exactly, and yeah, you do have some elements of that in this one. But that being said, each one of those characters needed to develop. They needed to be more than they were in the first movie. Each of them had to go on like their own kind of journey through this movie in a way, because if they're all the same people by the end of this movie, then everybody's like, okay, so it's just you guys fighting a bunch of monsters, robots, aliens again. Like, whoop-de shit.
Well, it seemed like to me, like the people that they really focused on are the ones that didn't really have their own movies. I mean, Hulk did, but not really. So they kind of focused more on Hulk and his demons. Black Widow, they talked more about, what she had to go through. We see a lot more from Hawkeye. I think of the other big characters, you see more from Iron Man than the rest of them, because really they don't talk too much about Thor.
I mean, by the end of that movie, you have a bigger picture about each and every one of those people. And that's, like I said, everybody had to develop. So that's, okay, so that's job one. Job two is you have to introduce, like they were introducing 4 new characters. You had Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, the Vision, and the villain Ultron. You had to bring them into the story. You had to bring them into the story and develop them about like where they're coming from and what their motivations are and why they're doing what they're doing.
And I really liked how they did the Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, because you could have easily turned this into an origin story on them and would have felt like you wasted a half hour. But no, they used the cutscene from Captain America 2. They used that basically as the origin. So you know where they kind of came from. If you saw that movie, you have a good idea. If not, they give you a couple sentence explanation where they did come from, and they move along with the story. It doesn't focus fully on them and everything. It's more of it shows what they've gone through and why they do these things than having to actually tell you.
Well, I mean, they do kind of monologue a little bit about, they were in the building and the building came down and there was a shell that didn't explode. And that took up maybe, 2 minutes of screen time?
Maybe, yeah.
So I
I mean, I guess
mean,
they come out and tell you more than they show you is, I guess, the way I should have said it, because they explain the things that they had to go through, and I think that's sufficient for them because we're so far into this. Any more like straight origin stories can get pretty boring.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Okay, so so now we have to not only develop our original characters and make them more dimensional than they were in the first movie. Then you have to introduce these four new characters and make sure that they're not one dimensional and give them, some sort of depth while simultaneously trying to create a cohesive story that doesn't crush or fall under the weight of all these characters. And not only that, but you have to make it seem like it's not just, okay, this is Hulk's moment in the sun. This is Hawkeye's moment in the sun. This is Cap's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you
Well,
didn't
yeah,
like which is something I was like, that to me I felt like he pulled it off flawlessly in the first movie. Like didn't make it seem like each character kind of got their moment in the sun, but it didn't seem like it was forced.
yeah. It went pretty flawlessly, and it seemed right in the moment. The thing that I really enjoyed is the fact that like all the stuff we saw from the trailers really happened in like the first 15 minutes of this movie.
Oh, I totally agree that like the trailer didn't give everything away.
Yeah, like the scene where you see is it all five of them jumping in unison. Instead of that being like the big pivotal moment in the movie, it's just them being Avengers. They're fighting some weak people, and then it moves on. So it's like, okay, I've seen this, but like now I'm actually seeing things I haven't seen before, and that's pretty
Right.
exciting.
And I mean, yeah, the last I'd say the last what 45 minutes of the movie, like you never saw in the trailer. Maybe,
No, yeah,
10 seconds of it out
maybe,
of the
yeah.
trailer.
I think like them like guarding the thing in the middle of the city. I mean, I think that's in part of the trailers, but the whole like I mean, people alluded to this, but the whole scene where Tony Stark is seeing all the dead Avengers, and like everybody was thinking, is like, oh my gosh, somebody's gonna die, but it ends up just being a vision type thing, and I thought
Right.
that was kind of a good sidestep of what you see in the trailer.
Completely. Okay. So I guess the question I'm asking you, and then I'll give you my answer, is considering that you had to develop your original characters, introduce these new characters, while at the same time create a story that makes sense for all this to happen. Did Joss Whedon do that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the problem I had with the movie is it's the superhero hangover maybe, or overload. Just because we've seen so many of these movies, and the first Avengers was, I mean, that was groundbreaking because it was the first time you've really seen all these people on the same screen at once, any kind of superhero group. So it was an event. It was a brand new thing that nobody's seen before, and you're completely invested in it because you've seen so many movies. And that was 4 years ago or 3 years ago. Coming into this, it's kind of the same thing, but it's a difference. They're just basically fighting something different. Um, Story wise and how he wrote it and how everything interacted was perfect. Like I didn't get bored at all in the movie. It was
No.
just one of those things.
I would say this movie had way more action in it than the last one.
Oh yeah, I'd agree.
By far. I mean it starts out with a giant fight and then it kind of rolls into another fight and then that, I mean there's I I would say like in terms of action, this one hands down is more action packed than the last one.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and like I said, it's just one of those things that like if this was Avengers 1, I mean I would probably be as excited as I was for the first one. But I think since I've kind of already seen it once, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, I've seen this thing before, so it's not as new, it's not as exciting. But
Yeah.
the only problems I really had of is it seemed like it was a little too jokey. It seemed like there's a lot of one-liners in there, which I like, but it's kind of In the first Avengers, it doesn't feel like there was that many. There's
I think that
this.
I honestly I don't know. I think that there were, but I think that they were all kind of in the moment. Like in this one, you kind of had like a couple running jokes
Yeah.
that went throughout. Like you had one joke that started in the first like 30 seconds of the movie and carried on until the last 5 minutes.
One of those where it's like they look at the camera and kind of wink and be like, "Hey, did you catch that? It's the third
Yeah,
time we
yeah,
made that
yeah.
joke." I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean,
Be
I'm
careful,
not I'm
Cap
not
doesn't
trying
like that kind of language. You know what,
to.
Romanov?
uh, I mean, and Ultron, I thought was a really cool character. Like they gave that
Oh,
the
James
UI of that, like,
Spader fucking knocked it
yeah.
out of the park for me.
And I probably laughed more at the jokes on that one than anything.
I mean, he really did. Because like you were trying to, like, I, I felt like you couldn't tell. I honestly couldn't. I honestly couldn't. I was trying to like, well, should I, look at this guy? Should I look at this and be like, well, he's a robot, so he doesn't know any better, or he's? But then I'm like, I think he does know better.
Yeah. Well, in the comics, did he have much of a temper? Because it seemed like the problem he had is, whenever somebody compared him to Tony Stark, he'd freak out, and
um,
basically you'd see like an actual temper. But did he
he
have that in
was.
the
I
comics that
mean,
you know of?
in the comics, he was. Well, also in the comics, he was more alien than anything else, really.
Okay. Yeah, because in this he's just basically artificial intelligence. There's not really much more. Well, yeah, he's just artificial intelligence because he creates the vision from one of the stones, the Infinity Stones.
Right from the mind gem.
And is that how the Vision's created in the comics too, or is that just what they're fitting into this universe?
I think that's just how they're fitting it in, which I'm fine with.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, we actually did call it because I was like that scepter. I was like that's the mind gem. I was like that thing inside the scepter. I was like that has to be the mind gem because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
fucking controlling people. So
I did love because I'm a pretty big Hawkeye fan. Ever since the first Avengers, I kind of started getting into the comics and everything, and I really feel like Hawkeye got kind of the shaft in the first one because in
well,
the
he was
first like
yeah
10
he was
minutes,
mind controlled for
yeah,
like 3/4 of the movie.
yeah, the only time you see him not is in the first like 10 minutes and then the last 15.
Yeah.
So in this one, I really love because I think a lot of people complained about that. So I don't know if this was a throwback to it or not, but as Scarlet Witch is possessing each of their minds, when he's about to get possessed, he turns around and jabs her in the head and says, "Yeah, I've already been through that before. I don't really dig it." So I thought that was kind of cool. That I mean, it's a story. It always feels like wrestling to me. It's like it's kind of it's fake, but it's nice when somebody actually gets a nod, be like, okay, they actually, are given this shot to
Well, and
shine a
also
little bit.
like I think we as an audience didn't really get to see much of Hawkeye in the first movie. It was more like he got mind controlled, and then he was kind of like Loki's kind of lackey, and then in the last like I said the last like 10-15 minutes, then we got to see him shoot a bunch of arrows at people. But in this one, we actually got to see his character. We got to see like where like what he's where he's coming from, and like, and I'll tell you what, I thought he like I know you were kind of mad about the jokes, but I thought he had some of the best wit in the movie.
Oh, I'd agree.
On
Yeah.
p- on
Um,
par on par, I would say, with Tony Stark. Like Tony, kind of like Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, I thought was kind of toned down from how it has been. Like he was very in the last few movies, he was very big and bombastic and enters the room and and like kind of like takes charge. But in this one, he was kind of like
he was a man with a purpose because his only real joke, I think he had a few like little ones, but the biggest joke he had was in the very first, as they're getting back to Avengers Tower and somebody says something about the leader and he's like, "Oh no, I'm not the leader. That's the leader. They're a captain." He's like, "I just, pay for everything and do all this other stuff."
yeah, yeah. But yeah,
But
I mean, Hawkeye definitely got his moment in the sun. I mean, to a point, like I would say there was. like that whole last fight, like he's like he pulls that he busts into that thing with Scarlet Witch. He's like, look, he's like, we're on a floating city.
Yeah.
There's an army of robots. I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes any sense, but I'm going back out there because I'm supposed to.
It's like, if you go through that door, that makes you an Avenger too. Did you see? There's a cartoon of that out there. I saw it before I went and saw the show. But it's that scene. And he says, "If you go through that door, you're an Avenger." And in the next cut, you see Spider-Man run through.
Oh, also, we're like when Quicksilver runs by and picks up Scarlet Witch, and they run off, and he just pulls that bow, and he's like,
Oh yeah,
"No one would know."
yeah. Ultron was just stepping on him. Poor little bastard.
Then he's
Yeah, I
driving
thought
around with with Natasha.
Black
And
Widow.
he's like, if I knock that wall down, make
Yeah.
that whole place into a studio.
Nobody eats in a dining room anyway.
Who eats in the
Um,
dining room?
so I had a big fear. So this is kind of big spoilers. But as they were at Hawkeye's house, in the comics, I don't think he ever has a family, so that's very different from what the comics are set up as.
Hmm.
Um, but like right at the end of that, I didn't really think much of it, and it's Joss Whedon, so somebody's gonna die.
Exactly.
And as he's walking out,
Did you not? I was thinking it was going to be Hawkeye the whole time.
yeah, as he's kissing his wife goodbye, and there's a little like focus on her, I'm like, Joss Whedon's gonna Joss Whedon Hawkeye.
Joss Hawkeye.
And
That's exactly what. And you know what?
Yeah.
How much like 9/10 of the audience was thinking the same thing. They're like, he's
Oh
dead.
yeah. And what pisses me off, so I mean, again, spoilers heavy, but obviously, if you're listening to our show, you've seen this movie. What pisses me off about who they killed, because there's the whole scene where, of course, it's kind of the typical scene. Oh, there's one kid left, in danger, and Hawkeye sucks it up and runs out there. And I was like, oh, he's gonna die. He's gonna die.
Yep.
This is how he's gonna die. I was like,
me too.
and then Quicksilver comes in, and Quicksilver dies. And I'm like, that's such a fucking cop-out. This is a character barely anybody knows or cares about. And so it's the easy one to kill off.
I was actually surprised he did that because, I mean, when it comes to him killing people, usually he kills the one that you least expect. But I think, I think at this point, it's kind of like a reverse mindfuck. He's probably sitting there going, they're thinking I'm going to kill somebody that's fairly important. So I'll go with the people,
Well, I'm sure I'm sure Joss Whedon has a lot of pull, but I doubt he could go in there and be like, I'm gonna kill Hawkeye in this. And the execs and everybody's like, no, Feige and all them are like, no, you're not killing Hawkeye. Here's the people you can kill. That's it. All right.
The person on this list is Quicksilver. Exactly.
Well, what about Scarlet Witch? No, we need that woman demographic.
We need more women. We need more women.
Of course, I think he would be okay with that because he's always really pro like strong female characters.
Obviously, yeah.
Which again, why isn't there a fucking Black Widow movie? That's my question.
I wondered that for so long too. Especially like when, like in the first movie when she's talking about like, I got red in my ledger and blah blah blah. Like do you not imagine that she has this like book somewhere that she keeps score and shit like that?
Oh yeah, I could see that.
And you could you could have this whole movie with you could totally have a movie with just her.
Could you imagine if they did like her origin story though, the place that she was trained? Like that's a rated R, like that's a moving, creepy movie that would be probably pretty amazing.
I would say it'd be akin to like a Hitman, like the Hitman movie.
Yeah. Except Hitman always seems more like futuristic, but this would almost seem more realistic. Like you could actually see somebody taking in these young girls at a young age and basically training them to be assassins.
Yeah.
Another complaint I kind of had about this movie, and it seems like this is what a lot of big comic book movies try to do, is it's this six people versus like 1,000 robots.
And I, honestly, like I've seen some reviews like on the interweb and stuff like that, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, in the first movie they fought an army of aliens, and in this movie they're fighting an army of robots. Like when they get to Infinity War, like what is there to fight? An army of what? Alien robots?
Well, I understand it because I mean I imagine it, or I kind of related to like when I was a little kid playing with all my figurines, Leonardo and Raphael, because I only had two turtles. They would fight these 30 other random toys I had, and they would beat up these ones and they'd come back to life and fight them again. And that's just kind of what it seemed like to me. It's like a kid playing with these toys, and these toys are fighting these huge random things. The turtles do that all the time with the Foot Clan. They're fighting these hundreds of thousands of foot soldiers, and I understand it. You can't just have them fighting like a big fight. It's video games. In the video games you don't fight just one person each time. You're fighting like this huge mass of things,
Right.
and that's just kind of how this is too.
I mean, a lot of people were like, it's kind of the same premise, except instead of fighting aliens, we're fighting robots now. And okay, which that's a valid point. Yes, it has, but I mean, fuck, there's like 10 people. Like, what do you how like who are they gonna like? How are 10 people supposed to fight one person
Yeah,
and
exactly.
make it seem like it's this fight for their lives or whatever?
I don't really know. I mean, the last fight scene, was that 30-ish minutes, 40 minutes,
I'd say it's about 30.
30 minutes? Yeah. So, I mean, you have that one battle with one character for 30 minutes, and it would be pretty difficult to. I mean, that's a 15, 20-minute thing at most.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's your climactic. It's the climax of the movie. How is it going to be 10 against? How is 10 against 1 the climax of a movie?
Yeah. Your boss fight can't really be like that. Although, so that goes into the post. I don't know what they call those credits that they show the pictures to, but the pre actual credit scene with Thanos.
Yeah,
Uh, did that get you a little giddy?
it did, because then you saw the gauntlet, and
Mm.
he had the gauntlet in his hand, and you're like, "Oh shit." Like
I
now we're gonna
saw there is some awesome like fan theories out there right now, like trying to like tie all this stuff in there. And so they were going on the idea that Loki wanted to get caught. And the reason for that is when he had that scepter, Thanos had actually used the scepter on him. And as he was fighting with Hulk kind of bashed it out of him. So now Loki like kind of came to, and he's like, "Oh well, I want Asgard. I don't want Earth. I want Asgard." And so just building into this whole thing, and so Thanos, because the gauntlet was in Asgard, and we saw at the end of Thor that Loki was in control of Asgard now. So the
right.
thought is that Thanos thinks Loki is still under his control, but Loki is not under Thanos' control, but he's playing like he is, kind of a double agent type thing, and basically trying to make Thanos go to Earth so that he can have full reign over Asgard.
So Loki gave up the
Well,
scepter in a way in order to kind of steer Thanos away from Asgard?
exactly, yeah. And he gave him the gauntlet, which was in Asgard, to basically even get him further away from Asgard.
Well, yeah, but he's got to know. He's got to
You would,
know that, like, if he has all these stones, he's going to be God. So it's
yeah.
not going to
I mean,
matter.
yeah, maybe. I don't know, but I mean, it's kind of cool if all that stuff intertwined in that way. So it did link up that. I mean, because it'd really suck if movie one and movie two didn't really play together. But like, if there's like a bigger plan, because that's what they wanted Thanos to be, and that's why he didn't have a big part in this movie, is because
Well,
they want to show
the
him
way
kind of
I
as the puppet
understand it
master.
is Thanos had the mind gem and gave the mind gem to Loki in order to get the space gem, which was the Tesseract, in order to get the space gem back from Shield.
Shield, yeah. I don't know. It's
So
just a fan theory, but I
so
thought. I
then
mean, even if it's not exactly that, if in some way that Loki is trying to play Thanos to get Asgard, thinking that the Avengers will take care of Thanos, um, and then he won't have anybody to fight because the Avengers will be weakened. Maybe, I don't know, but just having something like that play into it would be pretty sweet, I think.
or Thanos could just be playing to get the gems all together, so then he just has to go one place to scoop them up. I mean, because essentially
true.
that's what he was doing, and that's what he was, kind of doing anyway. Like it seems like at at first he's kind of content to just kind of send people out to go collect these things and then bring them to him. Like that's why he sent Ronan the Accuser to get the power gem, just to bring it to him. Just like, yeah, I'm content. I'm Josh Brolin. I'm just gonna chill here in my floaty chair, and off you go. You guys go fetch my things.
So two of the gems are on Earth. One from Guardians is there. The other one was with the Collector, or were two of them with the Collector?
No. One of the gems is on Earth that we know of.
Well,
So
the
the
Mind
mind
Gem.
gem, the mind gem is with Vision. Because remember, because Thor took the Tesseract, which has the space gem inside of it. Thor took the
That's right,
Tesseract
yeah.
with him back to Asgard.
So is that one in Asgard? Is that's the one they gave to the Collector?
No,
at
they
the end
gave.
of Thor.
That was at the end of Thor 2. They gave the ether, which would be the reality gem. They gave that to the Collector, and then we all know the story of the power gem. Because really, Guardians of the Galaxy is when they first started explaining the like what these actually are, the Infinity Stones and everything else.
Yeah, and really, Thor's little vision was the first time that it seems like the Avengers had anything brought to light about these stones.
Right.
Because they don't even really understand the vision what he has, do they? Like nobody's explained to them that that's some kind of Infinity Stone of,
Well,
that there's
no,
like five of them.
I mean, Thor's like, this. It's that stone is like incomprehensible power.
That's
Like
right. I remember
like
that
Thor
now,
kind of
yeah.
explains it to him, but then at the end of it, they're like, Thor's like, well, it seems like the gem is safe with him, so let's just let him keep it. It seems like the gem is safe with him, so let's, the Vision can just keep it, and then that way we know where it is. So you've got the mind gem is with Vision. The space gem, I assume, is on Asgard, or it's with the Collector. The ether, last we heard, it was with the Collector, and then the power gem is with the Nova Corps. So there's still two more. You have the time gem and the soul gem,
Which we haven't been exposed to it yet, right?
right? Which I'm curious to see how they're going to introduce the time gem. If I'm to venture a guess, I'm going to say the soul gem is going to be introduced in Doctor Strange. Because I mean, looking at their kind of production schedule, to me, that's where I think it would fit in the best, with kind of this supernatural kind of area of the Marvel universe. I think that's
So
where you put the soul gem in.
I'm always kind of curious with this series. They talked about that they did some filming in Africa, and so the big thing was that like they thought Black Panther was going to make an appearance.
Yeah, because
and they also talked.
they mentioned Wakanda.
And then with the whole Spider-Man thing, it's like, well, is Spider-Man going to make a small appearance? And I wonder if that took me a little bit out of the movie too, because there's all these things that I'm waiting for him to kind of lay the groundworks for future stuff.
Yeah, I could see that. Where like you see him kind of name dropping stuff, and then you're like, oh. Because I did that a
Yeah,
couple times. I like nudged my wife on the arm. I'm like, oh, look. They just mentioned a thing from a thing. It's another thing.
because I thought the guy that owned the weaponry place, I thought he was supposed to have like a bigger part in this movie, but he was only in it for a bit. The guy who got his arm cut off by Ultron.
Oh yeah. I actually heard that, like, let's say you sign on to play a Marvel character. Let's say you yourself, Shawn, that you sign on and you're like, I'm gonna be in a Marvel movie. That, like, once you have a role in a Marvel movie, like, that's who you are for life.
What do you mean?
I mean, okay, you are let's say you get casted to play um somebody's, like, a business guy, like somebody that works in an office, and
Hmm.
you are talking to Tony Stark about something. For the rest of your life, like, that's you. Like, you will never be able to play anybody else in a Marvel movie.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
You are Mr. Stevens, account executive.
But I want to try out for Black Panther. No, it's not. No, you're Mr. Stevens. That's it. That's all you get to be. I don't want to be Mr. Stevens.
Well, then you shouldn't have signed the paper.
Well, you shouldn't have signed the paper. That was my Mickey Mouse impression.
Fucking mouse.
Mouse. I don't remember if you and I are talking about this or who I was talking to, but do you realize that in a calendar year, Disney is going to have $2 billion movies?
No, I don't think you did talk to me about this, but yeah, you're right.
So Avengers is going to probably make $1 billion,
Yeah.
and Star Wars is going to make
It's
$1
gonna
billion.
$1 billion.
Now, I
what?
don't know. I mean, it's going to cut it close because Star Wars will have to make $1 billion within 4 months, but I'm guessing that that's possible. Because didn't it take like 4 or 5 weeks for Avengers to hit that mark, or was it longer?
Shit, I don't remember. I want to say like maybe 4 to 6 weeks. Sounds right.
But
I don't know.
either way, they're going to have 2 releases in a single year that'll probably make $1 billion.
I was gonna mention this with the Infinity Gems and but one thing I've noticed with when it comes to, like, the Infinity Gems, it's that each the themes of the theme or threat of each movie has been related to whatever Infinity Stone is in the movie. Like, okay, you take Guardians of the Galaxy is about a super overpowered thing, like almost like a bullying movie, like somebody with power picking on this little planet just wants to go about its day. So then you introduce the power gem into that scenario. Like, what do you do? Like, it's the whole question of, like, what do you do with power and who has power and, you know, uses of power. And then you take the ether from Thor. Like, that's about realities and, like, other, like, realities bleeding into each other, and one reality superior to another, and, like, is Asgard should Asgard protect Earth, and, it doesn't, or does it have its own things to do, or blah blah blah. In the Avengers, you're dealing with the mind gem, so what's the threat going to be? Artificial intelligence.
Makes sense. Yeah, and both Avengers, they've only had to deal with the Mind Gem, which is kind of interesting in itself.
This is true. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, the question that I asked way in the way back, I felt like the story was there. The story was cohesive. All the characters got their moment in the sun. Nobody got left out. It didn't feel forced. Like, oh, let's turn the camera to Hulk now. Oh, let's turn the camera to Hawkeye now. You know, all everybody was together.
I'm going to guarantee that's probably how Batman v Superman is going to feel. It's like, all right, we got our Batman moment, got our Superman moment, got our Wonder Woman moment. Oh shit, here's our Aquaman moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, I
I don't know.
completely agree.
I don't want to totally shit on a movie before I see it, but I kind of feel like that's I agree with you. I kind of feel like that's how it's gonna be.
So did they show the trailer for Batman v Superman?
Not in the one I
When
saw. The one I saw, I got a trailer for Ant-Man and Tomorrowland.
Okay. So I went to the Thursday night showing, and they showed Ant-Man, they showed Tomorrowland. Right when the Batman v Superman trailer started, there was audible groans in the audience.
Ooh.
Yeah, like
So
I
can we
mean,
say that like the Marvel DC war's officially on?
I think so. But it was just kind of interesting how a lot of people are just like, it's like thump thump, and you see, the statue of Superman in the background, and you just hear a bunch of people just like, oh God. I hear some guy to my right, and he's like, do you bleed? Like, all right, so obviously you guys aren't fans.
There was a, and actually, it didn't really take me out of the movie, but I was thinking about this while I was watching it. There was a DC film executive who was talking about like the Marvel movies and blah blah blah, and the DC guy said that we just feel that our movies have more edge, like they're edgier.
DC said that?
Yeah, DC said that. So of
Okay.
course, like they said that, and then the internet just fucking exploded because they're like, "Oh, oh, shit, damn, oh," you know what I mean? Like, that's fighting words or whatever.
Yeah.
But my thing is like, I mean, yeah, the body count's higher. I mean, if we're comparing Man of Steel to the Avengers, is the body count higher in Man of Steel? Fuck yeah. Did you see that city by the end? Like half of it was a fucking crater. But I was thinking about that when I saw when I saw this new one, because like, okay, spoilers here, but like that city gets flown up in the air, and then at that point Cap's like, we need to get these people off of here. Like like I don't care about this robot army and blah blah blah. Like everybody, we need to get like when it comes to the Avengers, it felt like you really got the sense that like their purpose was to make sure innocent people don't die.
Well, again, it goes back to like when you're playing with your toys. It's, as a 10-year-old or 12-year-old kid, you don't want to see people die. So you're like, oh, and in a lot of these comic books, you kind of see that too. It's like, oh my God, we're in a situation where realistically every single person in this world would die. We need to get them off this rock. How are we going to do that? And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, what's that over the intercom? Oh, it's Mr. Fury, and he's got a ship that can carry every single person in the city to safety. Let's do that. Let's go.
But like, okay, I guess my point is that like, yeah, a DC movie may have a higher body count, but does that necessarily mean that it's better?
No, I don't think so.
And also
Um,
like fucking like why doesn't this DC executive, why doesn't he wait until like his movies do something before he starts fucking poking at Marvel?
I think it's kind of probably the situation like any press is good press. And like this Avengers movie was kind of like it was sold as being darker, and I didn't really see it being much like very dark at all. Like I guess the whole DC piece is there's no jokes. There's like a no joke on set, no jokes in the script kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Marvel, so I mean they're trying to like follow the same idea, I think, but it's
It doesn't, just because the body count's higher, it doesn't mean that the movie's edgier. And like I said, I mean, honestly, like the fact that when you see Captain America running around like, we're not leaving until every single person is out of this city. Like, because that's the whole point. That's the reason why we are doing what we are doing. It's because these are the people that matter.
well, I think that just shows like there are heroes that try to do that, whereas I guess with Superman and Batman, they're just fighting a villain. They want to save people, but they do that by stopping the
exactly.
villain.
That's what. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, it almost makes it almost makes Superman seem like kind of a dick. Like, you motherfucker, like, you just destroyed half the city just because you got a beef with somebody that was mean to your dad.
So I guess going away from DC and the Infinity Stones and everything, what was your thoughts about the Hulk and his end scene where he's in the ship flying away? Because I thought he said something about the plane crash landed in the ocean somewhere.
Okay, I gotta say this. Like, when he was sitting in the cockpit of that ship and it's flying away, in your head, did you not picture the sad Incredible Hulk music?
No,
Like,
but I will next
flying
time.
away is like doo 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 doo.
Could you imagine if they started playing that?
Like, he slings a backpack over his shoulder.
Because I know there's rumors they're going to do World War Hulk and Planet Hulk. So it sounds like that's kind of the idea, but maybe they didn't know how to specifically get him to space. So they just said, oh, well, it crash landed in the ocean. Maybe he swam to Fiji. Or maybe he was lying. I don't know.
I mean, because there isn't anything for the Hulk planned in this next, in this whole Phase 3 schedule. So I don't know what they're doing with him. Honestly, I can't think of. I think that they're just like, I don't know if they know what to do with him.
Well, and in Phase 3, the only characters that they're using from the original Avengers, if you will, is the Captain America one. I mean, all the other movies are
they
new
got
people.
Thor. You got Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot because Thor
also,
2
do you
kinda...
think? Okay, do you think do you think Ant-Man and Black Panther are going to get introduced into the quote unquote new Avengers?
Somehow I think because what's going to happen with that first, I can't remember where I read this, but they almost mentioned like that first Infinity War movie. It's going to be these new Avengers just getting the shit kicked out of them. And then the second one's going to be where, the original Avengers come in and save the day.
Oh, wouldn't you feel shitty to be those guys then?
Yeah, it's like, so, we fought these aliens. We fought these robots. We're good now. Why don't you guys take over? And your first battle is this dude steps out. He's like, I'm basically, the equivalent of a god. It's like, huh. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. You guys want to come off the bench or anything? No? You want us to fight this one out?
Like not just a god. Like, I'm Thanos. Like, I'm Thanos. If I have all 6 of these gems in my hand, then I'm not a god. I am the god.
Yeah, because you said in the comics he snapped his fingers and half the universe was dead.
Yeah. Not just dead, like, just disappeared. Like, they're just gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He didn't snap his fingers and they just, they, like, drop dead. He snaps his fingers and then people just, like, disappear.
So I guess some final thoughts on Avengers Age of Ultron. I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it.
I mean, to say obviously it's worth seeing at least once. Would I go back to see it again? I don't know if I go back to the theater to see it again. Am I going to buy it when it comes out on DVD? Yeah, of course I am. Because not only do I want to see deleted scenes, I want the director commentary, I want all that shit. Because that's the kind of nerd I am. I'll geek out over fucking it drives my wife crazy when she's like, "Let's watch a movie tonight. What do you want to watch?" I'm like, "We can watch Lord of the Rings." She's like, "Oh, okay." What are you doing? I'm like, "I'm putting on the director commentary." She's like, "I'm going to sleep. I'm going
no,
to
you have
bed.
to listen
I'm
to
not
this.
even dealing with this." She's like, "Why do you do that?" I'm like, "It's interesting." I'm like, "Don't you like to learn more about the fucking movie you're watching? Like, how things are made, and oh, look at this camera trick we did, and oh, we just did this, and then all of a sudden it got like we got exactly what we wanted, and when we wrote this, we intended for it to be this way, but then we wrote this and added." Like, she's like, no, I really don't care at all. I do.
All right, babe. I'll be in bed in about 6 hours. Love you. So, kind of speaking about geeking out, I tweeted a shit ton about this, but I got to meet one of the guys that inspired us to create this podcast, and inspired me to write some scripts and do some stuff. I got to go to a Q&A for Kevin Smith.
Oh, so fucking jealous. I know you asked you. He invited me. Like we're not like he's not that big an asshole. He did invite me, but I had to end up working that day, so I couldn't make it. But yes, he got to go, and I like he kind of texted me about it a little bit, but I want to hear the whole. I want to hear the whole spiel.
So I was going to take my wife, and she ended up saying she didn't want to go. So I took my mother-in-law. I took her to see Tusk the Friday it came out. So she's been introduced to Kevin Smith and kind of knows some stuff about him, and she just really likes to like hear people
So she
talk in
saw.
that kind of sense.
She's seen Tusk. Has she seen any of the other ones?
Not yet. I've sent
Okay.
her Jersey Girl because I think she'd like Jersey Girl.
Okay. Okay.
So we get down there pretty early. There's nobody really there. Like 3 hours before the show, for the doors open or whatever. But we're just kind of walking around the downtown area, and we finally get in and sit. And I'm looking for because I wanted to get there early because I really, really wanted to ask a question.
Can I also make it like? Isn't it cute that he invites his mother-in-law? Like, isn't that sweet?
This will play in a little bit further in the story. So we get there and we sit down. And all of a sudden, we see a mic come out, and Kevin Smith comes out on stage. The show was supposed to start at 8. He comes out at 8:20. He's like, it's 8:20 right now because it was only supposed to be a 2-hour show. But he's like, it's 8:20 now. Just letting you guys know right now, we're going to go all the way to 11:20. So he's going to make a 3-hour show. So he does a little thing with a couple from the previous show that he was supposed to set something up for him because they're going to propose, but he forgot at that show. So he brought them on stage and apologized and had them run through some stuff. And afterwards, he's like, okay, as you can see, there's these mics at these 2 places. So, if you want to ask questions, go ahead and get up now and go there. And so I kind of had myself positioned to hurry up and get there. But as I stepped out, like 4 people stepped out in front of me. So I was the 5th one in line on my side, but then there was 5 other people on another side. So I would have been the 9th person to ask a question.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and if you've ever seen An Evening with for Kevin Smith, one question can take up to 30 minutes to an hour.
I mean, there was I think it's his Too Fat for 40. Like, one person asks a question, and then like that's the entire show is him talking after one person asks a question.
Yeah. So I kind of do the math in my head. I'm like, I'm probably not going to get to ask a question. So the first
But you
person
hang
asked
in
their
there, you
question.
stand there like a
Yeah.
trooper.
I did. I stood up there. I'm like, well, what's it matter? If I sit down, I would get to ask a question. If I stand here, I won't. So, just play the odds. So the first person to ask a question, it takes 35 minutes. He basically asked if he would cast Ben Affleck as the moose in Moose Jaws. And, Kevin Smith and his Q&As, that took him down a whole path. I mean, it's a story. The story he started telling I'd heard before. So I'm kind of curious if whenever somebody asks a question, if he already has a story he wants to tell and just ties that into it. If that makes sense.
I could see that. Honestly, I could see that because you gotta think like this dude does this like how many, he does this like, at least once a week.
Probably
maybe,
at least,
maybe
yeah.
more. Like I would think that like it's almost kind of like stand up. Like you have these kind of like go-to bits that you do. Cause I've heard tons of his shows. I've heard, tons of podcasts and evening withs and stuff like that. And yeah, there's a couple times like he'll tell the same story like, 3 or 4 times in those. But I don't blame him. He's only one dude that lives one life. How much do you want out of him,
Yeah, and it'd be a lot easier to say, okay, this person asked this question. I kind of answered it, but let me go into the story that I know. Like you said, just like stand up. This is the bit I'm going to do. So the first person takes 30 minutes. The next one took like 50 minutes. So I'm doing the math in my head and like, yeah, there's absolutely no way I'm going to get to ask a question. But I keep staying there. Kind of bounces through a few of the other ones. And finally, about 20 till 11, the person in front of me asked their question. And he answered it pretty quickly. So it's like, oh shit, I'm the next one to ask a question after he bounces over to the other mic.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, it's a possibility I might get to talk to him. So he answers the other person's question fairly quickly. So it comes back to me and it's like, it's my fucking turn. I'm standing here and I'm gonna get to talk to Kevin Smith.
Holy shit.
And the thought I had going down there, I mean, as we talked, like we started this podcast because, you know, he was one of our influences. The whole Tusk thing really influenced me to kind of start writing some scripts just for fun. And so one day before we went down there, because I think I tweeted pictures of the first script I printed and everything. And, you know, a week or two before we went down there, I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with this thing? And it just kind of clicked. It's like, you know, the person that probably should have this besides me would be Kevin Smith. You know, just kind of be like, hey, you know, this is something I did because of the things you've said.
Right.
And we have a bunch of magnets for our podcast. I was like, well, you know, maybe I should give him one of these too, because it's, you know, again, something that, you know, from the things you said, you know, we've created this because of that.
Yeah.
So
totally.
my thought was like, okay, well, I'll try to see if I can find him afterwards, and give those to him. But, you know, I get up on the mic. I'm like, you know, I'll as I'm saying these things of like, hey, you're very inspirational. I really want to thank you for all that. I was like, I'm just gonna do that here and be like, hey, can I give you these things here? So it gets up to me, and you know, I kind of say, you know, how inspirational he was, and told him about our podcast, and he asked the name, and he's like, well, what's it about? And I tell him it's like, well, it's kind of like, you know, it's the same kind of scenario you and Scott Mosier were in. You know, it's two buddies, didn't really talk to each other that much, so we went ahead and started a podcast. And I mentioned our drafts to him. I was like, well, one of the cool things we do is we do these drafts. And he's like, that's pretty dope. He's like, he says, he's like, so it's like I get Han Solo, Harrison Ford for pick number 1, right? And it's like, yeah, it's exactly how it works. So I mean, that was kind of cool to see that, like, oh, that's something neat. So he goes into a spiel about basically reviews and things like that he got from Ben Affleck. And so finally I get the mic back, and I'm just like, so, you know, I want to be able to give you this script and, you know, this magnet, if that would be cool. He's like, yeah, that's cool. I was like, but my mother-in-law has it. And he's like, you brought your mother-in-law to this?
I knew it,
and at that point,
I knew it.
yeah. And at that point, she's walking up and she has my script and the magnet, and she hands it to me and she starts walking away. And he's like, no, you get on the mic. So my mother-in-law gets on the mic. He's like, do you know what you're getting yourself into coming here? And she's like, yeah, you know, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, so this is your son-in-law? It's like, yeah, this is my son-in-law. He's married to my daughter for about 2 years. You know, he's a great son-in-law. And Kevin Smith goes, he's like, you know, they're probably fucking, right? And so my mother-in-law puts her hand up to the mic and she's like, well, I had my suspicions. So she's walking away, and, you know, I'm back on mic, and I say, you know, I just want to let you know how awesome she is that the Friday night Tusk came out. I took her to see that. And Kevin Smith kind of goes, your wife? I said, no, my mother-in-law. So he starts laughing. He's like, I don't want to upset the balance of the, you know, the family balance, but I think you might have married the wrong woman. So at that point, I just go up and I hand him the stuff, and that was the end of that. But as we were standing there, because there's one more person asked a question, so I was standing with my mother-in-law kind of towards the back of the theater, and the script and the magnet were sitting on his chair, like with his water.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm looking at that, and you and I have talked about our self-esteem and how it's not the greatest in the world. And so I see that sitting there, and like, I'm like, oh, I probably sound like a total jackass when I was up there. Like, you know, Kevin Smith's thoughts like, listen, dude, you giving me the script isn't going to make it into a movie. And that's like not my intention whatsoever when I did that.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at the script and everything on his chair, and I'm like, you know, it's really going to kill my self-esteem if he just walks off stage and leaves it.
Right.
And so I'm kind of watching that, and he ends the show, and like super inspirational. Even here, he's like, he's basically saying like, what you need to do this year is you need to go out and do something, creative. Just 1 year experiment, just do something creative, like he always does.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so he ends it,
I was gonna
and
say
he kind
like
of waves.
this is the part of the story that like I'm like that I'm like hanging on because I'm like because that was my thought too. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, like people give him stuff all the time, like, and he sets it down, and I'm like, holy shit! I was like, you gave this stuff to him. I was like, it's sitting there. I was like, is he actually gonna like take it with him, or is this something like, yeah, my assistant will get it, or you know what I mean, like,
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I walked up to the stage and handed it to him. So I physically handed that stuff to him.
wow,
Because the stuff it was the script, it was one of our magnets, and then during one of their episodes, he did a Q&A, and he had this super inspirational thing about like writing. Like somebody asked him, "How do you get inspired?" And he went through this thing of, it's like it's the closest you'll play to God kind of thing, and it's the thing. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but it's basically him saying, uh, the goal is like, well, can you finish it? And it's like, well, then when you finish it, can you make it into a movie? And I printed that out 6 months or 8 months ago and had that sitting on my fridge when I was doing all this writing. So I gave him that too. But yeah, so I'm sitting in the back and I'm watching this. I'm like, it's really gonna kill me if he just leaves it there.
yeah,
Um, but good news, he did at least pick it up and walk off stage with it. Now, when he got off stage, it probably ended up in a trash can. But at least it made it off stage.
Well, I mean, yeah. Do you this see you're at the stage now where it's like Schrodinger's cat. Like that script is either in a trash can or in his living room, like or like on his desk next to his script from Mallrats 2.
Yeah.
It's
Which, I
it's
mean,
it's somewhere and it's in one of those two places.
yeah, whereabouts, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
Schrodinger's cat, and it's not until you see it that you realize it's in the trash.
yeah. And I mean, with the way, like we said, the way our self-esteem is, like, my assumption, like, right when he walked off stage, I'm like, I bet it's in the trash. And then you feel like an idiot for giving it to him.
Whole drive home, you're like, stupid, stupid.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it was a cool show. I mean,
And
it
your
was cool at least get to
mother-in-law's
talk.
like, why are you crying? Why is trying to jerk the wheel?
It never goes the way I expect it to go. I'm so stupid. But I mean, it was cool. I'd probably go back to another one, and even my mother-in-law said she would go to another one. Um, but yeah, so that's pretty much my story. At least it was in his hand at one point.
What hockey jersey
But
was he wearing?
Fat Man on Batman.
Okay.
This is the one I think he's been wearing a lot lately.
Well, I
'Cause
think
he did a
he had a Joe Quesada on. I don't know if that episode's out yet, but he was talking about it. How he had Joe Quesada on, and he was gonna work on, or they were gonna do like one on the Avengers or whatever.
Gotcha. But it was kind of cool. So that theater that I went to see them at, I'm a big Papa Roach fan, and that was the theater that I got to meet the lead singer from Papa Roach after the show. So it's kind of cool,
See,
like
so
people
that's
that,
like your lucky I don't know, like your lucky glove or something.
yeah, yeah. So whenever I've been there, I've only been there twice, but each time I've been there, I've at least got to interact with somebody, which has been pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So
That's a good inspirational story. See, now I feel
yeah,
better.
cool. Well, yeah. So right
Did
now,
he talk
Kevin's
about
at least
alien robots?
he didn't talk about alien robots.
Did he talk about robots? Did he talk about if he was going to go see the Avengers?
I don't think Avengers came up. They talked a lot about Batfleck. He talked a
Because
lot about.
that's kind of his world right now. People are like, is Affleck gonna be? Has he talked to him about Batman? And also, is he gonna be in Mallrats too? I think that's kind of been like the shit he's been dealing with, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, there's a lot of Mallrats 2 talk. A little talk about yoga hosers and Tusk doing that with Johnny Depp. So
Yeah.
it was a good time. It was pretty fun.
That's awesome. See, that's you end on a high note, and that's where I feel
That's
like those
right.
happen.
Well, I mean,
Inspiration.
we got to see heroes on the big screen, and then I got to see one of my heroes on the stage.
Oh, wow. See, that brings a
Yeah,
full circle.
that does. We bring it around here, bitches. Well, do you want to tie anything in with your Richard's closing thoughts?
Um, always get a chance to meet your heroes. And not only that, always find new heroes to be inspired by. There you go.
That's a good one.
Write that
That's
on a fucking napkin.
a All right. Well, I'll do a little housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
If you want to visit our website, we're languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter at languageofbro. You can email us at eatthebeaver@languageofbromance.com. Like us on Facebook and leave us a review and subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher.
Also, don't forget to check us out on the podcast network with probably the most and best Age of Ultron reviews that you're going to see in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, there's going to be so many nerd reviews on Pod Bros. Comic books, Dave's Nerd Compendium, Guy Huddle's probably going to do some stuff. So it's just going to be Age of Ultron all over your screen.
Yeah, all face, neck, and chest, to quote our inspirational hero.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to do before I close her out?
No.
All right.
Face, neck, and
Well,
chest. That's where you leave it.
Well, that's all the bromance we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And I say we eat the beaver. There's no strings on me.